engaging.
And you can only become a leader when there are problems.
I like that.
The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating?
Whether rights from another country can be, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda, we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odong Thor. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
A very warm welcome, and I want to welcome you to this edition of Behind the Headlines, this Wednesday, the 15th of September, 2021, and we are going to be taking a look at the performance of the 11th Parliament, 100 days so far made since the 11th Parliament opened or was sworn in, with a lot of promises. And we are going to be taking a look and holding Parliament to account by their promises that they made, the moral promises that they have, but also the constitutional duty that Parliament is supposed to perform to make laws, legislate for the good governance, order, development of this country. To discuss all this, we have in the studio the Right Honorable Chief Whip, the Government Chief Whip of the Parliament of Uganda, Honorable Thomas Tayebwa. He is here making a maiden appearance. You're most welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Charles.
Good to see you in the studio here. Next to him, we have the Honorable Joel Senyonyi. Originally this side, but now the other side, but it's okay. Joel is the chairperson of the of Kosase in Parliament, and he represents the people of Nakawa West. Joel, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles. Charles, you should introduce me properly. I am an OB of this place. I'm not a guest like these people here. So me, when I'm here, I am back home. Anyhow, I'm delighted to be in a place that I first stepped foot at 2006. When I began my media career.
But make no mistake, the fact that you're reminding me of being an OB this side,
I'm compromising
will not make the questions any lighter than for the rest.
Bring it on, bring it on. I'm glad to be here, Charles.
Good to see you again. Next to, closer to me, this side is the man who spoke so much for the civil society, spoke so much from the media perspective as well, also an OB this side, but now he is charged with defending the image of Parliament. He is the Director for Communication, Parliament of Uganda. Chris Obore, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles. I think my role is promoting the understanding of Parliament.
Good.
Promoting the understanding and image of Parliament.
Okay.
Not necessarily defending.
That's a nice one. Thank you for the correction. Promoting the understanding and the role of Parliament. Good. Finally, next to me on my left is the lady who says it all, and Council Sarah Birete. She is Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
And on this day, the International Day of Democracy, it's a befitting topic to discuss, so we will be taking a look at that as well. Let me start with the person who controls the largest majority, Okay, who controls the majority of MPs in Parliament, the government chief whip. Honorable Thomas, 100 days, can you say that you're living up to the billing? Have you so far, as the ruling party with the biggest number of MPs, can you say you have so far made 1, 2, 3, 4 laws that can contribute to bettering the lives of Ugandans?
Thank you, Charles. Parliament is not just about making laws. Beyond laws, we have other programs and issues which we must handle as a house. But on the side of the laws, there is a deliberate move we took as a government side, whereby we want first to scrutinize deeply the business from the 10th Parliament. It was saved by the 10th Parliament, and as per our rules of procedure, we must, if we are still interested, we must scrutinize, look at the business we are interested in, and then we move a motion to reintroduce it to the House. So far, I think we are about to conclude that, because we are trying to see if there is business we can enrich, then some which has been overtaken by events. But we presented our legislative agenda. We've already met our constitutional obligations. For example, we've already presented Parliament the Charter for Fiscal Responsibility for financial year 2021, 2022 to 2025, 2026, as required by the law. We've already, at cabinet level, finished a few of the laws which are with the First Parliamentary Council, like the Electricity Amendment Bill, the East African Crude Oil Pipeline Bill, like the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, where we shall be looking at how best we can use some of the proceeds from oil to invest within the National Oil Company for purposes of meeting obligations under the different arguments for oil. The motions that we brought Parliament, they've all passed. We brought a motion of transferring the votes for Rural Electrification Agency and that one of Ministry of Science and Technology to Ministry of Energy and Ministry for the Presidency respectively. We've presented the judges who are needed to dispense justice within the country, and they've been approved by the House. We have presented the new team of IGG and the deputies who have been approved, Uganda Human Rights Commission who have been approved, some of the commissions like Education Service Commission, and very many things that have been going on. So now we are about to go into a cycle of legislation. And I think in around a week or two, we shall bring in around four laws tabling before the House for the first reading. But also the President returned 2 laws which were processed by the 10th Parliament. That's the Succession Bill, Amendment Bill, and then the Sexual Offences Bill, which are being processed by the Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and the reports I'm told are ready. So very soon we shall be again looking through all those. So we are doing very well on our side, and we are moving steadily but surely.
Okay, Honorable Senyonyi, to set the ground rolling, you are part of that same parliament, but coming from the opposition side. Do you think that you're convinced with what you have done so far in that parliament? As an MP first, but most importantly, or in addition, as an opposition member?
Charles, when we set out to begin our mandate in May, there were a couple of challenges. I'll begin by speaking about the side to which I belong. Different parties, we like to call ourselves the forces of change. For a long time, there's been issues you know, that we don't see things through the same prism, different approaches. The end in mind is the same, but different approaches, different modus operandi, and sometimes there can be a bit of friction. But we are glad that thus far we have tried. It's still work in progress. I don't want to sit here and gloat and make it seem like it is Uhuru yet, but we have tried to build cohesion, to see that we operate in unison with the other entities, you know, that yes, NUP has majority on the other side, but then there's colleagues, you know, with us, that we have the FDC, DP, UPC, JMA, PPP, and that we must be able to work together, especially if what we have in mind is the same. So we have tried to do that. We have them on board in our cabinet. Even though, yes, we are charged with, you know, distributing committee positions and so on, we've brought these people on board because it's important. It's important. We need them. We must be able to work with them. So I'm glad that there is that unity. And I see it even with our parliamentary team on the left side of the speaker, that we are united. That you don't see the fights there were a bit of fights towards the end of last year, campaign time, different political parties. I don't see that. You know, we are working quite well, which is a good thing. Like I'm saying, still work in progress, but that's far. I am personally delighted that we have been able to know that we must be able to work together, and we are operating together. To the specificities of the things that I think we have also been able to do. Recently, we unveiled our legislative agenda. Now, there is people, they like to call themselves the elite, who will say a couple of things. You'll hear them every once in a while say, but now, Chagulanyi and his group, what is their agenda? We had a manifesto in the run-up to the election. We unveiled it, we put it out there with social media. Now, things are a lot easier. People will not read it, but then they'll go, some of these elite excited people, they will say, what is your agenda? We're like, but you people, this thing is available now. Website, we've tried and, you know, abridged the version and shared it all over. Read and critique us based on that now you said this in your agenda, but, you know, maybe it should be this and so on. But that they don't have an agenda, and you look at the ignorant fellows. But you see, we extracted from that our manifesto, a legislative agenda, because Parliament is a front, you know. And so we said for our parliamentary front, these things that we must be able to focus on from our manifesto and so on, that can be dealt with on the parliamentary front. There's things that might not be dealt with there, but there's things that we can handle on the parliamentary front. Things that we want to push, you know, and we have shared with the Honorable Taiwan team. We hope that they will really see sense in these things and then come on board, because these issues we are suggesting about healthcare, how we should revamp it, you know, how the budgetary process should look like, you know, about education, how we should deal with that matter, governance, etc., etc. Proposals that we are suggesting, they are not about NUP, because if you revamp healthcare and make it better and focus quite a bit of your budget, because we have ratified so many of these conventions, you know, that say a certain percentage of our budget should go to health, etc., etc. And so we are saying, guys, we can actually make this happen. We're not a rich country, but there's resources. When you see resources being pushed here to security, to buy tear gas and so on, let's try and maximize this. It's very important. So we are hoping that they'll come on board. So we have shared that too. And we're hoping that people will read. And when they read, then they can say, okay, this is good, maybe improve on this and so on. But this usual, you don't have an agenda, because they say if you want to hide something from an African, put it in writing. People, let's learn to read. Read and then advise us on how we can get better. But there's also things that we've been involved in as MPs on the left side of the speaker. I'm glad that, because when we started out, majority of our MPs were new. Majority of us, including myself. And so we have had to learn the ropes quickly, get a grip of all these different things. When to raise on procedure, on order, on whatever the case might be, when to raise through motions, and we are making progress there. Last week, there's a motion that was pushed through by one of our colleagues, the Honorable Betty Etho Naluima, Wakiso District Representative. And of course, we work together, you know, that we craft this and so on, and then somebody champions it to say that, look, government, there's such a thing as decentralization provided for under Article 176 of our Constitution. Actualize it. These local governments will send through all the money and then wait and begin to beg you to send something back for them to deal with the basics that they should. And so we are glad that that motion pushed through, saying, no, this should not get to happen. That government, when you say decentralization is in place, follow it up with the finances. Otherwise, then it is not decentralization. So we are glad that that came through. The other issue that I've seen a number of our members participating, and I'm really glad that our members are quite active, even in the House. You'll see them raising matters of national importance, you know. And I know some people have said, but now a matter of national importance should touch everywhere. Well, not necessarily. You know, if the Masaka MPs raise and say, look, this is a matter of national importance, our people are being killed, you don't say it's only Masaka, it is not in Nakawa, so it's not a matter of national importance. Of course it is. When there's a disaster in Kasese and so on, you don't say, no, that's not a matter of national importance. There's a different interpretation of that matter, and we are still having an interesting debate in Parliament. What's a matter of national importance and what is not? Because some people think a matter of national importance should touch everybody. Well, the floods in Kasese are not in my constituency, but they are a matter of national importance. But anyhow, I'm glad that our MPs are raising through these issues. I'll finish in a minute. The other issue that we have tried to deal with, of course, we are in charge of the accountability committees. And we have rolled out, there's some work going on there. You saw how Prime Minister Nabanja excitedly launched this program. And they were there screaming, shouting, happy, sending money to border riders who are actually councillors of NRM, who are civil servants and all these different things. We have been able to unearth. And I'm glad I've heard Nabanja and team say they're going to take action. I hope they will, because when you goof up and then somebody shows you that you actually goofed up, deal with this matter. It's for the good of all of us. When this money is properly utilized, it's not only, it's not an NUP thing. It's a question of taxpayers' money. I will, in 30 seconds, talk about the challenges. There's a number of things that I would have talked about, but I see you're pressed for time.
Maybe hold on the challenges, because we are going to come to that proper. I needed us to first set the ground, especially picking on from what we see and what people are talking about, that 100 days or 4 months or 1 quarter already finished. Have our representatives done something that we can say is to help us? But that will bring me to Chris, who he put it correctly, that promoting the role of Parliament, and that's a very important perspective to place before Chris. Let me pick from a clip I saw on one of the national papers. I read from Monitor, one of the Daily Monitor's stories about Parliament. And the story, it was on June 8th. They were looking at the new Parliament and the promises it brings. And they said most MPs have difficulties linking the legal interpretations of the role of Parliament to real societal issues that Parliament should be concerned about. And they referred to 1, the performance of the economy, 2, service delivery, and 3, slow policy implementation. Chris, in your role so far, have you seen that our MPs have already built capacity, built skills, built the potential to deliver what can develop this country, what can help the ordinary person in Bukedea, in Nebi, in Bushenyi grow better and realize some difference in their lives? Do you see that? Or it is also a process in...
Thank you, Charles. I'll quickly submit on the first what they have done so far, although I think the assessment has to be placed in the context. Because this is, we could call this a COVID-19 parliament. And COVID has brought so many disruptions that even affect parliament itself. So as we assess it is 100 days, we need to contextualize that. But nonetheless, I think the critical business parliament has done, which must be appreciated, is sort of the facilitation of the formation of the new government. without a government, then we would not be asking for anything. Because this is, service delivery is actually a primary duty of the government. So Parliament did that. Parliament gave the government a budget. So as we are discussing, that budget and the government that was put in place are working. So I could call that an achievement of the 11th Parliament, because there's government in place and there's a budget to run that government in spite of the hardships. And I also want to dissuade the people who keep asking the opposition, what is your agenda? Again, in my understanding of Parliament, that is going outside the role of the opposition in Parliament. Because if you're asking the opposition for their agenda, you are basically not understanding how government runs. The operational agenda now in Uganda is the NRM agenda. The people of Uganda have voted in place a government. And anywhere world over, it is the agenda of the government that takes precedence. So if you want the NUP to have its agenda, JEMA to have the agenda, you ask them for too much. Perhaps you'd be asking them, what mechanisms do you have in place to ensure that the agenda of government lives to the expectation of citizens? That would be a fair demand. But to ask them to formulate their own government is equivalent of telling them have a government within a government, and that does not build correct political relationships. It does not build a national culture that we can bequeath to generations to come. It only perpetuates antagonism, fighting. Because the reality is, there is a government that the people of Uganda voted into power, irrespective of your view, and that government's agenda is the one operational for the next 5 years. Having said that, you ask about whether Parliament, the members, are playing their role as per the law. First, let us also appreciate that an entity called Parliament anywhere has no peers within a country. Every country has one Parliament. So there is no other within a country where you expect people to get experience from. And regardless of our levels of education, the traditions of Parliament, the mechanisms of work are not easily known even if you have a PhD, unless you are in Parliament. So this one being, having faced a very high attrition rate, we have many new members of Parliament, highly educated though, but without prior experience of what Parliament is. So you can say many members are still getting to know the ABCD of one legislation, Parliament itself, how does it operate, what do I need to get to do this? So the period of learning is always there. It's not good for us to assume, because you have been elected a member of Parliament, we expect high performance from them from the word go. Then we would not be properly assessing members of Parliament. There are many members from NUP interacting with Parliament for the first time, save for perhaps Honorable Joel, who had, by virtue of his previous employ, was able to at least get to know the ABCD, but not to the core. He had never been a chairperson of a committee, but today he's a chairperson. We must give room for Honorable Joel to get to understand his role, because he has the capabilities, but he has to do it and get grounded in it. So fair assessment should take note of that. So this Parliament has more new members than the old ones, but it is still able to perform. I will give you an example. The Right Honorable Speaker Jacob Olanya wasn't around for some time. The new Deputy Speaker, who had never chaired a plenary, was able to step to the game. I think that's itself an achievement, that Parliament was able to run with someone who had been a backbencher. So to me, that is a very important milestone for this Parliament. So you can see that given time, this 11th Parliament is going to live to the expectations of the citizens, and we must all ask them to work towards that. Okay. So if they do not know their roles, as people want to assume, I think it is not good to throw generalizations of members of parliament, really. And when I say they are still learning, it's not the same as saying they don't know. These are two different things. They are still learning, yes, because parliament is unique in its own. It has no other peer. Local governments are not parliaments. You get it? So whether somebody has been a councillor, a district chairman, a speaker of LOC3 council, no. Those are imitations of legislatures. They are not legislatures. The peers for a parliament are in other countries. And there is no Ugandan who has been an MP in the US or in the UK, and then he has come here with experience. So let's give room for members to get to terms with their roles. We need to support them to get to their roles and demand that they live to the reasons why the citizens voted them.
Okay, Sarah Birete, you come from the civil society. Or perhaps maybe before I bring Sarah Birete, let me introduce Honorable Dr. Agnes Apea, who is the woman MP for Molatar District, and you're most welcome. Thanks for finding time to join the discussion. I'll shortly be coming back to you. But Sarah, you come from the civil society, and civil society, you know, groups do not, are not usually, many people think that they are not usually patient enough to say, let's first do like Chris is suggesting. The issue is you have come to parliament, you must work, poverty is not waiting, hunger is not waiting out there. Do you, civil society actors, judge the MPs fairly, or you think that maybe they should be doing better by now than they are presenting without any you know, enacted so far, but they say they are doing the work?
You know, Charles, as Chris was talking about, you know, patience for people to learn their roles, I kept wondering that how come, you know, in the Constitution, there is no such period to say that Parliament for 6 months is running where doors are and how to open the doors, like the late Dr. Adonia Tuveronda used to say on campaigns, that there is no time for go touring and running out, open and close doors in Parliament. Business starts on day one. So as much as it is important, yes, for people to get familiar with their work, I think that Parliament organizes, you know, the induction trainings. I've seen also the trainings of chairpersons of committees, you know, the peer-to-peer learning from the senior members in Parliament. And it can be ongoing, but it cannot be used as an excuse to say that be patient with the Parliament. There is no such provision. If this is necessary, I want to invite the lawmakers here on the show and wherever they are, that they provide, if they need 3 months to run their way about their work, let it be provided for in the laws. We have new ministers in cabinet. I think majority of the ministers are new. Are we going to say that cabinet cannot discharge its functions because people are running their way around? I would like to hear from the chief whip whether they need time to run on how to do their work as ministers, and whether MPs should be given time to run how to do their work. I don't think that really as leaders at the national level that we should fail to say this has not been done because people are running their way about. I don't buy into that argument. Once you take oath, first of all, once you compete for office, then you should mentally prepare. As you plan to compete for these offices, do you know what they are about? Do you know the work they do? We have minimum standards of who qualifies to be an MP in our Constitution. And the framers of the Constitution assumed that anybody who has an education level of senior 6 or equivalent can legislate. And the same framers did not provide for a running period where people are excused from discharging their functions. For example, as Chris rightly said, this is a COVID parliament. So you have a parliament, people are dying, Dead bodies are being detained in hospitals. I think that's the time really Parliament officiated. We had that crisis of the second wave. Are you going to say that we cannot, address this crisis because we are running? I don't think so. And to judge them fairly, I think the takeoff is good. I like what the speaker has highlighted as his mission as the head of the second arm of government, to say that he wants a parliament which is committed to addressing pro-people issues and taking decisions based on evidence. And he's trying in his approach so far to cast an image of unity, an image of non-partisanship, an image of saying Parliament is about the people and governance of this country, as contained in Article 79 of the Constitution. To me, I think that is a sign of hope. It's a sign of people regaining trust in the institutions like Parliament of our country. And if you go through the other functions, I know the Honorable Chief Whip has talked about the pending bills. I don't know at what stage those bills are, but also legislation normally is driven by the timing. So if maybe there is no issue that needed to be legislated about in these 3 months, then still you cannot promote it, because what are you trying in these 3 months? So that is also understandable. But if you go to the functions as provided for in Article 155, 56, and 57, 155, 156, and 157, on appropriation, oversight, and matters of accountability, the crisis of public debt, Parliament is trying, because they are now debating the merger of government agencies. As civil society, we hope that can help reduce the bloated administrative bill. We also hope that Cabinet will not stop at merging these agencies, because the bloated administrative bill also starts with the stadium size of Cabinet itself. I think we have 81 ministers, the biggest. We double some of the countries in East Africa, the biggest parliament in East Africa, one of the biggest in Africa. Yet our resources are dwindling. We are in a recess caused by COVID economic effects. We have a public debt crisis. We've passed the red line. So I hope that the effort to cut down on public expenditure will not stop with merger of agencies. We hope that Cabinet will step up, even stop creation of districts that are not even viable. I have seen a debate on creating new cities, even when the old ones the recently created ones have not taken off. So we need to see an effort on the side of executive to try to live within their means and stop driving this country into an unbearable debt crisis.
Charles,
okay.
Maybe just to get harmony between what I'd said and what Sarah is submitting, I think the harmonized position would be, I did not say that members of parliament need time to understand, get orientation, get what. Yes, they have the capabilities. I was looking at the optimal performance. That is the desire of everyone. That it may be too early when many members are new, they are working while getting to experience of the job, within the job. So it is akin like, if you have married a husband, your desire may be to have a Benz, but he's still building a house. That does not mean he has no capacity to buy a Benz. That's what I'm saying. That he is working, but what you want will come. The other way could be,
I like that.
if you have married a wife, the fact that she has not conceived in 6 months does not mean she's not a good wife.
You aren't necessarily.
Does not necessarily mean she's not a good wife. So you are not going to say
it may also mean so, but
no,
not necessarily.
No, it may not necessarily mean so. She's still playing her wife's roles. So I'm saying, given the nature of this parliament, many are new.
Yeah.
They have done oversight, Emioga issues, they are coming up. You have seen the issue of the COVID money itself. They have held people to account.
Yeah.
They are now.
They are doing well.
So they are doing, but I'm saying the expectation of optimal performance from the word go should be understood.
Okay.
That please, they are working, but appreciate the conditions and the context in which members of parliament are working for a better assessment.
Okay.
This has become a marriage counselor.
Sarah wants me to marry her. I want to baby the marriage.
The analogy is an interesting one. Dr. Pear, I want to come to you. You are a new member of parliament, and the chief whip, this is his second term. Chris, of course, is not yet a member, though he's inside there. Joel has been very close to Parliament
Yes.
as a journalist. But you come from also the kind of, what did Chris call it? Did he call it imitations? You were in local government, and you know how local governments work. But I want to take us from the perspective of some of the challenges that we face as an economy, as a country. One, weak policy implementation, dampened level of you know, Sarah referred to the public debt, issues of high cost of credit, high cost of energy. These are things that are really affecting our people, and hence hampering the growth of the economy, hampering development. In your first 100 days or quarter of life in Parliament, do you think that what you have so far touched, what you have so far done, that the people of Amolatar can say, yes, our MP is doing the best? Or do you fall within the thinking that, no, we still need time and we shall learn with time, while their situations are not waiting?
Thank you very much, and thank you, my colleagues.
Maybe you can even, as you debate that, you can even prescribe how long would you need as a new MP
Oh my God.
to start?
Thank you very much. I think, as Sarah has rightly put it, to be a member of parliament, you've got to be ready to start from the word go. Indeed, there are no provisions for any time for you to have an excuse. And I must appreciate that the 11th Parliament has started on a very good note, and all the different sectors within the institutions have played their role. And in terms of establishing the structure, the governance structure of Parliament, all the committees are in place, and even the agenda that is set on the floor, in my view, has given us a very good start. And as a new member of Parliament, I wouldn't say that there is still any more time that I need to do what I'm supposed to do, because the Constitution puts it very clearly. I came here knowing my 4 different roles that I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to appropriate, I'm to legislate, to represent my people, but also to provide the oversight. So in my view, we've started on a good note in that context, but also in terms of my feeling of how far this can transform my people of Amolatar. One, I am an NRM member of parliament. I don't know about my colleagues in the opposition, but as Chris has said, we are implementing a manifesto of the party in government. And the party has come out very clearly with what it wants to see in the next 5 years. And so that sets a platform, a foundation for any member of parliament who is coming. You're not starting from scratch. You have the rules of procedures, you have the constitution, and you have the party manifesto with very clear kind of things. And also our leaders, the Speaker of Parliament, has come out very clearly that we want to see the laws and policies that work for the people. And in several occasions, we've also had the Deputy Speaker and the Speaker saying that we want to take Parliament to people. And in my view, in the 100 days, I would like to say that we've done pretty well taking Parliament to the people. And in terms of the socio-economic transformation of this country, and for my people specifically, we've also engaged in areas that we think government has invested with a very good will, with very clear strategies and guidelines, but there has been gaps. And I think Emioga stands out for me in the last 100 days, that Parliament was able to engage, to take Parliament, members were able to take Parliament to the people and to assess this particular program to see whether it will really change the lives of our people and whether this program would really make the party deliver its socio-economic transformation agenda for this country. And I think in that view, as members of Parliament, we've done quite well. We've engaged, we have identified gaps, we've made recommendations right at the district before even Parliament, and we are also hoping that at Parliament, as we discuss the different reports, we should be able to come up with very critical recommendations that will inform any other subsequent new programs that will come. Now, in terms of the wastage and the consumption aspect of our budgets and all that, and which members are very cognizant that our appropriation role shouldn't stop at waiting for whatever the sectors bring to us, but get in there, interrogate, and understand if the things that they've put in the budget actually make sense in the lives of our people. And I'm privileged that I'm a member of the Budget Committee. And in that aspect, that is why you saw us processing the motion of transferring the REA back to the ministry, and also acting on the aspect of Ministry of Science going back to the President's office to enhance efficiency and also reduce costs. So in my view, such engagements that members have engaged in the 100 days, we hope that we will be able to really serve our people as they have sent us to do. And in terms of the capacity, yes, the Parliament has different categories of members with different backgrounds, but the system that has been established in there provides avenues for peer support and peer, like ongoing learning processes. And I think that is why the framers of the Constitution did not really put that this month is for you to learn, because the systems that is in there enables you to learn as you move. And so I think that the institution is well established enough for even members who may have maybe a challenge. For example, I'm not a lawyer, but we have a whole, legal team and committees to do that, So I think the systems in there provides an opportunity for us to do whatever we are supposed to do. And so, in fact, when you go in there, there is nothing like a new member or an old member. The issue is there is 11th Parliament.
Yeah.
And so the 11th Parliament provides an opportunity for both old, new, many, or, an opportunity to serve this country given the mandate of the institution.
Okay. Yes.
On the issue of MPs learning and what? I wouldn't want to look at it from that angle. I would look at it from an angle of adapting to a new environment. because you have in the rules, you have in some people you've never met them. They were all of a sudden you're rubbing shoulders with the ministers, with the vice president. There's no protocol at that time. You can whisper, you can do what. So when you take a day or two and you see how it's being done, you easily adapt and you raise your confidence levels. So it's not about learning, it's just about adapting.
Okay, on that note, Honorable Chief Whip, I think it was your colleague Joel who talked about the political relationships that have been built, and Chris referred to toning down on, you know, did he call it agitations or something like that? How are you leading your team to ensure that there is that? I'm not saying that the opposition should be lukewarm, but for the purpose of the benefit of Uganda, that there should be points of agreement that this is corruption, and corruption has no party, corruption has no sides. We must face it head on. If it is our member or if it is the opposition member, that we must bring them to account. How do you think that you are creating room for that as your team?
You see, as leaders, we have a lot of behind-the-scenes discussions in terms of how to ensure that in the end of whatever we are doing in the house, it's a citizen who wins. It's a citizen who benefits. We have a culture in Uganda where people believe, if for example I called Joel, like some time back, I made a signal to the leader of opposition because we were having an issue on the floor, and then we moved behind. Then another time he also did it to me. Then someone came to me and said, but you people, Taiwa, you're going to become weak. Huh? No, Impuga calls you, you come and you. Then also he told me the same. Some people were saying, but what were you discussing with the chief whip? But in the end, we want to ensure that Uganda wins. So we do a lot of talks behind the curtains. We exchange a lot of words on some few issues, but we say, no, what is in for a Ugandan? Not what is in for NRM, what is in for NOP, what is in for opposition, what is in for a Ugandan, what is the principle here? And then also we go to the speaker sometimes. The speaker guides us. That is the speaker or deputy speaker. When we say speaker, for people who might not know, whoever is chairing a session that day is the speaker.
Yeah.
We don't have a speaker or a deputy speaker when someone is chairing. So we go to the speaker and we say, no, today we move this way. But I think most importantly is respecting each other. What Joel goes through to come to Parliament is what Taiwa goes through. When we are in Parliament, we are colleagues. And that issue of knowing that we are colleagues and we face the same voters, or when they are abusing us as MPs, I never hear them saying MPs except Joel. No, they just say all of you. No, well, especially on issues of welfare, they never do because we earn the same. You know, we earn the same. So that's where we come in and we look at issues. And then also us, we exchange documents. If he has an issue he's presenting, he has to ensure I get that document in time. That's the side of the opposition. I also ensure they get our documents in time so that they are able to go back, cross-check with their teams of researchers and policy analysts. And we have a much more fruitful debate. Okay. The moment we take that route, then we shall reduce on the animosity on the floor, because as leaders would have agreed. But also there are cases where we don't agree. We don't agree, we come in, we argue, we tussle it out. For now, we haven't invoked our numbers so much, because we've won our debates very well, fair and square. Where it requires us to bring in our numbers, to do a lot of whipping, we shall do it. But the first priority is to first engage as leaders and see what is in for Uganda, and then we agree on a very clear direction. That's the approach I'm looking at as a leader.
Okay, good. Honorable Joel, you are also an important, leader the other side. You mentioned the issue of leading the accountability committees, and these are huge committees. They perform very big roles. At what point should we, as a public, Ugandans should start, at what point should Ugandans start holding you even to a bigger or a greater responsibility, that you cannot run away from the fact that you are few in the house, but that you actually have this role to lead in demanding for accountability and proper accountability at that? How are you going to ensure that beyond the 100 days you can do better?
Actually, Charles, as far as I'm concerned, that should have started right away from the time we got sworn in. You know, this 100-day thing, one, it's foreign. We jump onto it because the Americans do it. First 100 days of Obama or whoever the case might be and so on. Well, maybe there's a place for that, yeah? But for me, most importantly,
I actually like,
how have you kicked off?
For me, I like going by the first quarter, because that is how we usually turn around results, given
so
our financial year arrangement.
Focus should be on how do you lay the stage to get to do work. So this show begins at 10 p.m. But you see, if by 5 minutes to 10, it's not yet 10, but 5 minutes to 10, these chairs are not here. They are somewhere in the parking. You know, the cameras don't know where. It's not yet 10 p.m., you know, so you can't say, you know, but preparation, you know. So this 100-day thing, I don't know, maybe there's a place for it. But for me, I think it should have been right away, that we should also focus quite a bit on what business is Parliament processing. Whether it is 10 days, 20 days, what is the plan? Is there a plan? I was talking about our legislative agenda, and Chris said the government agenda is the one that's operational. That's true. But you see, maybe we also need to delink ourselves from, I like to think of it as hubris sometimes, you know. So we are the ones in charge, we are the ones with the numbers. So it's either our way or the highway. And I like that the government chief whip is talking about engaging. We do. Once in a while I bump into him and I'm like, but now you people, what is this issue here? No, you deal with this. Because it's important. It should cease to be, you know, the government agenda. For starters, by the way, Honorable Taibwa, you people have not produced your legislative agenda yet. I have yet to see it.
We presented in a meeting where he was, the business committee.
The business committee is not
My
working.
point is, so what you presented in the business committee was a summary, but for me, most importantly, the House should be aware. It should cease to be in a secret meeting, you know, between us as committee chairpersons, because the business committee has, among others, we committee chairpersons, you know. But how do we relay that to the entire House? I think that that's important for communication, that the rest of Parliament knows this is what you have in mind, this is the idea, and then we see how do we tweak it. Anyway, that's really my thinking.
For the clerk,
that it should go.
Our obligation under
No, the clerk is not going to sell your agenda for you. No. That's above her pay grade. But anyhow, for me, I think importantly,
maybe keeping with that, because you talked about the plan that should be well laid out. The business committee work is very important for that to be achieved, the planning to be achieved. Are you saying from that type of question that you don't know the business committee's plans as rolled out for the 11th Parliament?
Now you're talking about two different things. So there's the business committee, and then there's the government legislative agenda, which, yes, they presented.
Do they differ? Is in that where Chris's point
of
becomes...
course they do. So the business committee...
I thought the business committee is the one that plans for what Parliament will be doing today, tomorrow, the day to come, and that is in relation to the government in power, which is the NRM. Isn't that where Chris's argument...
So let me distinguish this for you. So the business committee will make some kind of projection. But you see, and again, one of the habits we told the Speaker I want to break, previous parliaments, the business committee would meet like once in 3 years. you know, which we said must stop, and we agreed that we must be able to meet quarterly and plan. So you make a projection, but then there is the daily happenings, some of which might not necessarily have been projected in the business committee. You know, I'll come with the private members bill. You didn't have it in your business committee. I'll come with a motion, which was not part of the business committee projection. You know, so there is that which is ongoing. And I think it's important, you know. But the point I was emphasizing is that away from that agenda, we must be able to reach out, because we also can dig in our heels. You don't say, we are government, so we have an agenda. It is the one that must be operational. We must all come together for an agenda that is for Uganda. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Last week, one of the issues tabled by government was the Ministry of Science and Technology, which they want to make a thing of the past. And they wanted that money to be transferred to State House. And there was a bit of back and forth, because we were saying, wait a minute, how do you now, you're fusing this ministry with State House and saying it should no longer exist, let's carry the money to State House. We said no, and where we dug in our heels, and eventually the Speaker allowed for time to negotiate and so on, and I'm glad that eventually sense prevailed. We said, look, at the very least, let's have a separate vote. What that means is, it is easy to hold somebody accountable who is responsible for that vote. When you throw the whole thing the other side to State House, say it is there, it is too much money, by the way, quite a bit of money that was allocated to science and technology. So when you say now, just merge it with State House, there's accountability issues. But we said, no, let's have a separate vote for that, so that eventually that vote with specificity can be accounted for. And that's the idea that we sold. You know, we are glad that they saw sense in it, and it prevailed. So when you come with this thing of, no, our agenda is we must move this one directly to State House, it is either that or nothing at all. We must be able to listen and balance. You want to give me information?
I think for clarification.
That you want to give me information?
Because I'm still on the
for
floor.
clarification, yeah, I think for clarification purposes, the rules are very clear, okay, and also the laws. The president is supposed to present, okay, the executive, a legislative agenda.
True.
It's usually done. In fact, it's done during the State of the Nation.
With the State of
and
Nation is supposed to present that.
We list the laws.
And it is constitutional.
It's constitutional.
Yeah.
So this time what happened, because we didn't have a cabinet, he had not yet constituted a cabinet, the ministers had not yet given input. When he was giving the State of the Nation, he said, I would send it through the Prime Minister after you've constituted business.
But we need to be clear that that is not supposed to be an excuse.
Okay. So, Charles, he did that. But under Rule 28 of our Rules of Procedure, at the end of every legislative week, okay, the Prime Minister, that is every Thursday, presents a statement of business of the succeeding week. So we, in advance, we inform our colleagues in Parliament. Next week, government, we shall be presenting ABCD. That doesn't mean that what we present, you are saying this is our business, you can't talk about it, you can't change it, you can't. No, we present it to you for debate. So we appreciate the fact that you added value to the debate, and we even took it in good faith.
I have a problem with that. I am not in disagreement at all with
what we do is by law. Parliament, when it comes to Parliament, business of government takes precedent.
That's actually true. No one
but
is in disagreement.
But we don't stop a member. We don't stop a member or the opposition from bringing your business. Every Thursday, in fact, now the Speaker said Thursday should be members' time, so that they bring their time. You can bring a private members bill. You can. So government is not in any way suffocating opposition or any member from bringing their business.
No, the point that I was making, Honorable Taibwa, is I didn't want Chris to be misconstrued, and I want to imagine that's not what he meant. I didn't want him to be misconstrued to mean other agenda don't matter. You know, because he said, no, there's a government and they have an agenda, that's the operational one. That is true. But then you must bring everybody on board. By the way, for your information, as an individual MP, I also have an agenda. There's a reason the people of Naka always sent me to Parliament, and I have an agenda. Forget even about the entire block of opposition or government. You know, so my agenda has got to have space in that August House.
You can even call it interest as well.
So the
also
agenda,
okay.
See that word interest has been abused and misused. Right? So I have an individual agenda. A political party can have an agenda, and a bloc like ourselves, we unveiled our legislative agenda. So I don't want people to say, but now what is that one for? There's already an agenda. No, no, no. We are therein as stakeholders, as contributors in this space, and then we must be able to make very good use of that and be able to accommodate everybody. Because also, so yes, you can even roughshod over people with numbers, but at the end of the day, a number of things might suffer, you know, whether it be quality, but also cohesion. Like I've given you that example, you know, where a team starts separately, both government, opposition, to agree, say, you know what, okay, so if you want to disband the ministry, don't do it in a shabby manner. Now carry this money, State House. No, let's create a separate vote, a separate account, so that then somebody is held specifically responsible. And I'm glad there was space for that. Anyhow, I wanted to talk about one or two other things.
On that planning aspect, I think what I see in Parliament, the rules are very clear, the Constitution is very clear. In economic point of view or a budgetary point of view, for some of us who are coming, you have a long-term plan which is presented in the State of the Nation for the whole year. You have that government business that comes in. Then you have the midterm, where even committees themselves have their own agenda that wants to get onto the floor of Parliament. Then you have the operational. That is the one which is on Thursday and matters of national importance, where, you know, there's a storm somewhere, the road is blocked somewhere, a member stands up and all that. So I think Prime Minister's question time and all that. So I think, in my view, the Parliament is the most liberal institution I've ever worked in. The rules provide for space for you to engage.
They provide for those agenda.
To engage in any form that you want.
But of course, you know, Honorable, you may say it is the most liberal, but we know that institutions or structures that work with formalities are usually actually the most like law, as they say. Exactly. That you have to follow this rule, go to the next, go to the next. And
those rules,
it doesn't allow you so much wriggling.
If you analyze those rules very well, it provides actually avenues for you to engage at any time.
Okay.
The rules are made by members
every year.
Every term.
Yes.
Every term.
So they are your own rules.
Robert, you're a lawyer. You know that many times rules and laws can be used to stifle and persecute people. But anyhow, there's one other thing that seems to be part of the government agenda. They've not said it yet, but looks like the agenda is that the 12th Parliament will have 700 MPs.
Really?
And they have begun, and for me it's very problematic. So
that sounds a very substantive matter.
And I'm raising this on the question of size of Parliament. We keep growing by the day. Now we hear there's 23 municipalities that they are bringing through, even before a year elapses. That would mean that by the end of the 5 years, we might have like 200 new constituencies.
Please, allow me authoritatively.
Okay, Chief Whip.
Allow me authoritatively.
He wants to deny, like they denied term limits. They denied
allow me on behalf of government.
Can I do this? Can I do this? Just hold on. That's an important matter. I need us to take a break. Then let's breathe in and out. During break, then come back to it as a substantive discussion, and then I'll bring Chris and Sarah, but after the two of you. Let's take that break quickly now.
Five times the winning, 5 times the happiness, 5 times the luckiness, 5 for 5, oh yeah, it's 5 for 5, 5 for 5, 5 times the money, 5 times the shopping, 5 times the prizes, 5 for 5, oh yeah, it's 5 for 5, 5 for 5.
Win 100,000 Uganda shillings weekly in the 5 for 5 jackpot. Simply download the Center mobile app. Click Center on the go to open your account online. Transact 5 times or more using Center Mobile, Center Visa, and Center Agent to stand a chance to win. The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. So, participate in the 5 for 5 jackpot and win millions in daily and weekly prizes. The 5 for 5 jackpot is brought to you by Centenary Bank. Our bank, Centenary Bank, is regulated by the Bank of Uganda. Customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund.
Echa COVID-19 kijja kugwa only if we stay at home, observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
I smile when I think of you, Uganda, my home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda, my home. Oh, my Uganda.
I know, with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together, my home.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines. This Wednesday, the 15th of September 2021, and we are looking at the performance of the 11th Parliament. Have they started on a note that is worth the expectation? The expectations, of course, being high. If you talk about poverty, you talk about demanding challenges across the country. If you talk about the need for development and socio-economic progression, those do not wait. And we are asking the question, has the 11th Parliament so far lived up to the national expectation that work must be done and done now? In the studio we have the Honorable Thomas Tayebwa, who is the Government Chief Whip. We have Honorable Joel Senyonyi, who is the spokesperson for National Unity Platform, but is a Member of Parliament for Nakawa West and is chairperson of an accountability committee called COSASE. We have in the studio the Honorable Dr. Agnes Apea, who is a Member of Parliament for Amolatar District. We have, not yet Honorable, we have Chris Obore, who is a Communications Director for Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. And we have Sarah Birete, who comes from a civil society, and she is the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. You are not...
So don't say not yet honorable.
That's what they all say.
I'm intending to be a good servant of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda, but not as a member of Parliament.
You know, when Peter, the one on whose back the church was built, when he said, "I will be with you till the end of time," Jesus said, you will deny me.
So when are you becoming an MP?
In about 5 years' time, you might hear
I
Chris.
can never say never, Chris.
Chris might say, you see, for me, I don't want, but the people say they want. So let's just go.
In my village, there is a deputy speaker.
The people have suffered.
What would I want to
The
disrupt
people,
in my
the
village?
people will demand.
Can I become a deputy speaker?
The people will urge
We
you.
cherish what we have.
Anyway, that's a good one. I want to thank the Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. He has shared with me, Joel, I think this answers your fears. He has shared with me the legislative program for government for financial year 2021-2022, and it has about 12 items from most of the important sectors. Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Internal Affairs, and he is a communicator. He's a communicator for government.
So what Dombo should do is not just to share it with you, to disseminate it out there. So he knows it because he's in government.
Yeah.
But then about everybody.
Before Dombo.
Of course, because I'm part of the business committee. Yeah, sure. But you see, what I'm telling you is, don't keep it, within that very small team. We have the entire parliament.
Let's do this. If you want to join this discussion, you, the viewer out there, send your discussion to, your thoughts to hashtag UBC behind the headlines. Hashtag UBC behind the headlines. That's on Twitter, but also through your phone, you can, through your phone message, you can send a question or comment, but keep it short so that we can have time to read them at an appropriate time. Send them to 0709 602592. Let me repeat that number, 0709 602592. But we are also streaming live via YouTube. So if you want to join the discussion via YouTube, you can also go to YouTube on UBC Television Uganda. Now, I need us to, Chris. Yes.
Before my bosses begin to discuss the new creations, to submit on how the working relationship in the parliament can lead to what is desired for the population.
Yes.
And you see, they can disagree on the routes to take, but it's important to them to know the destination. So I think in that way, we guide the country in creating political relationships that are correct. Over time, both the media and possibly the actors, political actors and civil society, have highlighted more our disagreements and less of our agreements. I think it is very important as a country and as parliament that we begin to highlight our agreements, such that we quicken the delivery of those services that the population needs.
I agree.
So if all the time we are highlighting how we are capable of disagreeing, in a way we are impacting negatively on what the people want. Whether you are NUP, whether you are FDC, whether you are NRM, there is a minimum consensus that this is what is desired.
And so that minimum consensus is service delivery to Uganda.
So we can now question, if it is service delivery, how do we arrive there?
Yeah.
So what I was submitting before is, when I said we have a ruling party agenda, is an assumption that we all appreciate that it is 5 years to get an aggregate mandate of Ugandan citizens. And once that is settled, we take that as the minimum consensus, that what NUP has submitted, and just like NUP, when it got the numbers, automatically it became the leader of the opposition. And the FDC that was the leader of the opposition now becomes the second largest party. So if we say that NRM is in power, it is a truism that it is in power, and that's an agenda. So can we then examine what has the NRM put as its premium in the agenda? And then how can we collectively make the NRM premium be actualized? Because it is desired by the population. Is it infrastructure? Is it industrialization? Is it what? So if NRM has said, we want to promote industries, then I don't see a reason why a person in civil society says, don't promote industrialization. I'm saying, we can now say, if that's the premium, then how do we go? So that, you'll come to it. And I agree that every member comes to parliament with one, individual interests, which you assume should mean the interests of those that elected him or her.
Yes.
That should be the minimum, unless the interests are beyond that. But even if they are beyond that, the member must understand, in the modern politics, you must subjugate your individual interests, one to party interests. The party is the bigger aggregate.
If you belong to a party.
If you belong to a party.
Because our constitution
yes, allows independence. So if you're a party member of parliament, to be reasonable is to be able to reconcile your personal interest with the party's interests. And then we can go and demand for trans-party interests, the trans-party agenda. That even if we are different colors, but there is a minimum consensus that only these we are together. That defines the direction a country goes. But unfortunately, whether in parliament, whether outside parliament, we seem to cherish, to cheer how different we are, forgetting how similar we are.
It's inevitable, Chris, that those disagreements get to come out, you know. I don't have a problem with us putting out there the things that we agree upon. I mean, it is me on this show who has talked about how we agreed on the motion of local governments. It is again me, not you, not him, that has talked about how we sorted out the issue of the transfer of money from the ministry. You know, ideally it should be you, Chris, talking about these things. So I'm talking about them to project it, yeah? But again, let's not make it seem like, yeah, we should always, you know, it's supposed to always be agreement. Because you've said, for example, that if government wants creation of industries, you might want to create industries because you want to steal money. And I'm not saying you, but somebody might moot that idea. And we have seen this. They said everybody must have seat belts. Somebody, because they had brought in seat belts. After they had sold everything, whoever gets arrested on the road because they are not wearing a seat belt. Speed governors and all these different things. So when I say, but no, wait a minute, you're insisting on this thing, that now you should have an electronic something registration number and so on. And then I raise an issue. And you say, no, you see, for you are now against progress and so on. There's a place for that. And again, we should allow room for that those voices get to be heard. If I'm saying, wait a minute, why are you pushing hard on this speed governor issue? It is not that I want people to die. But I want to understand, are we serious about this? Is it sustainable? Who is bringing them in? How did we procure this farm? So those are all important elements, even in debate. And it's okay for Honorable Taebwa and I not to agree. And then we try and establish, why are we not agreeing? I have reasons why I will say, no, what you're proposing is probably not right. I am all for, let's better this country, etc., etc. Those are things that we make noise about anyhow. But again, these other ingredients are also important, you know. So whenever I hear people who will say, but now you guys are always opposing, well, listen to why I'm saying no to a particular issue. You don't have to agree with it, but listen, why am I saying, wait a minute, let's pause on this subject matter. Then let's pause on, I was talking about the size of parliament when you paused us. You know, because everybody is excited, now create more municipalities and so on. They'll say, hey, wait a minute, this whole, yes, the people want. But is that what is right? Can we not take leadership and say, you know what? People are eating rats, they are whatever they are doing, so that will create more districts. But let's help them understand that if this thing here is a district, it is big. There's one hospital here, there's no hospital here. These people here will eat a rat and say, we also want a district because they also want a hospital. You don't have to create another district for you to build a hospital, for you to build schools on the other end. Because then you're going to bloat the wage bill. And so these ingredients, it's important that we make room for them, that we listen to this. In the end, there will be finesse.
Okay. Honorable Appear, Sarah had raised her hand, and then you, and then I come back to the Chief Whip.
There's an important issue which you shouldn't...
Yes, I know.
I'm definitely going to give
you space for it. Yes, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. You know, in developed democracies, there is what is called the bipartisan agenda.
Yes.
But also, if you look at the legislative agenda that NUP unveiled, a lot of issues are actually what the NRM always talks about, but have never implemented. Let me pick just quickly 4 issues. The NUP's agenda talks about fighting corruption, talks about human rights,
health.
It talks about health, quality healthcare systems, talks about quality education for all, talks about developing sports and the creative industry, and talks about creating jobs.
But it also talks about returning term limit, which the NRM perhaps doesn't agree with. It also talks about what other?
Yes, okay. Yeah, I just picked quickly 4 or 5 issues. No, let me first submit, please.
Because when
no, please, can we have one person at a go?
No, that's why I'm requesting.
No,
is it?
Okay.
I want submit, then they can come in. No.
Let her finalize her submission, then I come to you.
Yes, so when in a multi-party democracy, opposition is known as a government in waiting, but also is supposed to propose issues they think. It can be even on a related issue. For example, the president recently addressed the nation on how he wants to eliminate all abuses of corruption, of human rights. So when the opposition raises that matter, what would stop the government from adopting and supporting it? Who should have a monopoly over these issues? So when you say that the government agenda is the agenda, even as we go to this so-called government agenda, let me just give a quick example. In the last election, we had over 18 million registered voters. But how many votes did NRM get? A third. I've seen the Electoral Commission has
6.1 or something there
6.0 32. So you got a third of registered voters. So you should know that the 2/3 that did not vote for you, now you are a leader of everybody, and it's not just your issues. You should listen to everybody's issues and implement what you think is the common good of this country. So that's how developed democracies work.
Okay. Yes.
Just to pick up on that.
Yeah.
I think the feeling that there is no space for any other alternative views, in my view, needs to be kind of contextualized. Because within these 100 days in Parliament, like I said, Parliament provides a legislative space. And I remember when we were discussing the State of the Nation address, the leader of opposition is given time to present their alternative address to the nation. And Parliament debates both.
Yeah.
And I remember in that debate, I think I engaged the leader of opposition who was talking about something around COVID, how we are doing very badly and all that. And yet there were also data showing that there was some progress somewhere, much as there were challenges. So the notion that there is a restriction and all that, as my colleague Joel has just said in that Parliament, if you have an agenda and you want to present in the floor of Parliament, the rules of procedures provides for that.
Okay.
And so I think that notion needs to be kind of, contextualized and re-examined. And then the other point that I wanted to make is the perception of the feeling that Parliament is there to make to make laws. That is the fact that we make laws. But in the 100 days, I sit in 2 committees, and I've seen how every committee picks on the different agendas that comes from the business committee and bring it and adopts it to their own work plan and all that, to demystify what does that mean. For example, in my agriculture committee, what are the laws that government is proposing? What are the other alternatives? What are the issues? And in every committee, for example, in my committee of agriculture, we even have the shadow minister of agriculture, who is there to bring all that alternative views. So I think in terms of space, Parliament provides that space. I think what we need to be talking about now is how do we harmonize that when we are going to the floor of Parliament is not seen as we are, we are shooting one another and all that kind of stuff, but we are bringing an agenda that works for the people. We are going to legislate the laws that actually works for the people and transforms the lives of our people. I think for me, like Chris said, that should be, and that is the agenda of every member of parliament. If we are there, you are legislating, you are saying something, you are mindful of who has sent you here. What is in that law that will improve the life of that person that has made you to come here?
Okay, Honorable Chief Whip, there was that pending question that you wanted to respond to. One, the question that I think it is that you are planning to increase the number of constituencies by other means, and that therefore you want to increase the number of members of parliament again, or the size of parliament, and that is something they disagree with you on.
You know, Charles, for your information, that's one of the issues that have come to parliament, and we get bipartisan support. The opposition pushes for it much more than even the government side. In the 10th parliament, Honorable Magezi, on behalf of the president and cabinet, presented 15 proposed new constituencies.
Yeah. Parliament
rose up in arms. It was like a war scene.
I saw.
You saw for yourself. And
he was
even
swarmed by members.
They didn't even allow him to finish presenting the report.
Where is mine?
Where is mine? Where is mine? Where is mine? It went to the president. The president stood his ground. He said no. Then I remember the secretary to the treasury, Mr. Case Mahakanize, when they brought a list of over 50-something, he denied them a certificate of financial implication. Parliament, I saw over 40 MPs went and raided finance. You must divide, you must do what? In the end, it was our decision as parliament. It wasn't a decision.
47 new.
It wasn't a decision of government. And I can tell you, Honorable Joel, creation of those constituencies is not a decision of the executive. It's for us, and we should carry the burden. But now, what I want to tell you is very simple, and what I want to guarantee, that one, government is not going to create any new single administrative unit in this financial year, in this term. By law, it's not allowed. If you follow very well, if you follow very well the case of Kwizera Bagahungu, the judgment was very clear, and we have discussed it in government, and we have adopted that position, that there is no single administrative unit. And I want people to know whether when you're pushing your people, whether it's a village, whether it's a parish, whether it's a sub-county, town council, a constituency, or what, there is no administrative unit that will be created and implemented in this term. In case Parliament goes
Honorable
ahead,
Chief Whip, will you accept that I will hold you on behalf of Ugandans to that
I'm
promise?
telling you, when I tell you that authoritatively, you know we've discussed it at the highest level of government, and also to comply with the judgment of court. In case one unit...
Honorable Joel, let the Chief Whip, allow the Chief Whip to exhaust the point.
In case it's created, implementation will only be in the next term, after 2026. Two, there is a clarification I wanted to make also.
Yeah.
Where you said you're planning, like for example, to bring term limits, and the government might not want them, the NRM. In the 10th parliament.
No, I was adding on to the point.
That's a strong, no, for you might have been adding, but on our side, that's a strong statement. In the 10th parliament, when we were debating the age limit bill, okay, the constitutional amendment, where age limit was removed, I remember very, very well. It is the NRM MPs who supported the return of term limits. Successfully, Parliament voted and returned term limits. It is the opposition who took us to court, including that clause. Allow me, including that clause. including that clause which you had secured already. I thought you'd be celebrating it.
No, but it's
you
not
went
wrong in
court.
law.
So, if we gave you a chance and you lost it, please don't blame us again.
But if it's good, then
So, we
do.
did it.
Why are you saying
We
it must
did
come
it.
from
We
opposition?
did
If
it.
is
You
good, do
faulted
it.
us. You took us to court. Please don't judge us again.
Ah,
Please. And spare us on that.
In 2005, Charles, when debate about amending the term limits had started, government came out and spoke authoritatively. General Museveni came out himself and said, no, we cannot. In 2005, Honorable Taibwa was still in the opposition, because in 2006 he ran as Youth MP Western on the FDC ticket. So he knows what I'm talking about.
And you know it because you also ran on the youth ticket.
No, not 2006.
This one at
really.
that time was not in opposition.
2000, I just joined the media, really. So anyhow, shortly after that, we saw the amending to the constitution to remove term limits. MPs were paid 5 million shillings. Fast forward to age limit. Authoritatively, every government official came out and so on. Mr. Museveni also came out and said, no, beyond a certain age, you are too old, you can't understand these things, you can't. Everybody denied. And people, you know, calmed down. The long and short, the age limits were also thrown out. So I don't want anyone to really bank on the word of Honorable Taibwa.
No.
He might even mean well, him as an individual. No. But please don't bank on it. Don't take it to the bank and say, the government chief whip assured us they're not going to create new administrative units. No, he has to say that here. But really, that's not the practicality. So when he says that actually the law does not allow, perhaps what you're alluding to is, yes, it will not be, and because for me what I talked about was the 12th parliament. Yeah. So you'll not create it for the 11th parliament, but there's a possibility that the 12th parliament could have over 700 members.
It's you. It's
and I'm saying it is wrong.
It's you, Joel.
So here is the thing. You see, those come from, and again now you keep running away from your legislative agenda and what is driven by government. Because you see, I cannot table and I say, I want this district to be split without the backing of government. It cannot happen. You know the rules don't allow that. So away from, you see, the people want, and yes, there are some opposition MPs also want the area split, please offer leadership, Honorable Taibwa, and say this is wrong for both government and the opposition.
No, I know. First bring
there are some people
order who push.
No, you
as opposition also.
I don't.
Why do you want us to discipline your people?
No, the buck stops with you.
We handle ours, you handle yours.
You see, ultimately, if as Joel Senyonyi, I say, and I do whatever I can, get people to eat rats, whatever I want, the car was split. If government does not allow, it will not present it, because it is not me to present it.
Is the beneficiary of the split.
And that's actually not true.
Yeah.
So you know, I was on a show with the Speaker of Parliament then, Honorable Kadaga. That, of course, she wasn't Speaker, because the 11th Parliament had started and she was campaigning. I was on a show with her. And I said, you see, this whole bloating and growing is wrong. And she said, but you see, you also benefited. And I told her, Madam, I'm on record over a year ago. And I said, I actually do not want Nakao to be split. I said, I have an interest, but it is wrong for it to be split. Of course, yes, there was logic by some. It has 400,000 people. Others even have 50,000. I said, yes, be that as it may. And I'm on record. Before campaigns began. And I said, look, I have an interest in this, but I don't want it to be split.
Joel,
and you know the reason why that is the case?
If I was you, I would have refused to stand in protest.
Now you see, so the reason they split, they will create an area where they think now here we might have an advantage. You know, we shall follow you, Wafuso, and take that away from you. Yes, you have done it, we are not going to let it be. But you see, the principle should remain. This idea that all the people want, including even opposition, you offer leadership and say, our wage bill is too high. We don't even have where to sit in that parliament, for heaven's sake. The one that is meant to sit, I think, over 600 MPs, it is there. It is not completed. I don't know whether there's something behind the scenes that's not happening, because Chris will tell you, as parliament, we are spending billions of shillings to rent offices, Kingdom Hall, Development House. I don't know why we are giving business to people instead of injecting that money to finish that building. Anyway, that's a debate for another day. But most importantly, for heaven's sake, what the people of Uganda want is service delivery. When you see them crying, I want a district and so on, it's because of the false assumption that when you give me a district, I'll have now access to services, I'll have healthcare, education, which has turned out not to be true. There's actually no money to run these districts. once we, Honorable Taebwa, deliver services to the people out there, they are not interested in districts for the sake of it. It's because of that false assumption and false hope. If I have a district, I'll have it. Let's deliver services to the people of Uganda. That is what they... Oh, I will support it.
I'll bring a motion to Magina.
When are you bringing it? Because I want to second it. But you know you make promises which you don't keep, so I can't...
Let me bring... Chris, when the politicians are disagreeing like that, you need to come in. Yes. And but
really,
yes,
on the creation of,
Chris, you will come after Dr.
the new administrative units.
Yeah,
I think we need,
and all of you have benefited. Actually,
no,
even the Honorable Chief Whip was a beneficiary of the split of the bigger Bush.
At least for me, I represented
Honorable
district,
Joel,
and I supported
Honorable Joel was.
But even if I had lost, I was on record for
Honorable
the
Joel was.
Should be right.
Honorable Dr. Affair also was.
So anyway,
Dr. Affair also benefited.
Charles.
Only people who have not benefited on this show are Chris, Sarah, and myself.
Charles, Charles, for the
record, that we are saying, let's correct the wrongs.
Okay. Charles, for the record, I represented districts, not a constituency, a Molata district, which is not a constituency. Don't mind, I'll give you details. Now,
when was a Molata district created?
205. 205. Yes, so anyway, I think, Charles, I want us to look at this creation of new districts in looking at the drivers. What is driving our country into creating these new administrative units? Yeah, very important. What is, I think, and we need to look at it as leaders. What do we want as a country to transform the lives of our people? Do we want to be governed more or to be represented by more people? Or do we want economic growth? When I was in local government, I would go to districts and talk to them that if I were you, instead of asking for a district, ask for a factory from government. Because if you ask for a factory from government, that factory is going to create jobs for your people.
Yes, please add 2 of my minutes to Honorable Apea because she's speaking my language now.
You know, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, if you ask for a factory, you're going to get jobs for your people and real well-paid job. You're going to create markets for your products, and you're going to create, you know, the whole socio-economic transformation that we are talking about. So I think the discussion should move away now from creating administrative units to creating economic development units. Okay? And I think if you go to my village in Amolata now and you ask them, what do you want? They are going to tell you, we want, you know, we want medicine in the hospital, we want good roads, we want schools and all that. Now, how do these things come? You know, as an economist, when there's a way we normally say we are blaming government and all that. And I've said it here and I'm going to say it again, that if leaders could come together with government, and I always say we are all government. This idea of saying government and all that, we are all government. Can we come together and have a frank discussion and say, if services are to reach to our people, what is it that we need to do? We need to invest in our people. For them to have the purchasing power, I said it here and I'm going to say it again. They cannot have purchasing power if we have a sub-county which does not have a sub-county chief, does not have electricity, and does not have power. But we can have the services if these people are supposed to grow their crops, have the factory where they are going to sell to, process their products, and sell it at a higher price. So for me, I think that is a discussion. And I'm really looking forward to that discussion because our speakers told us that we are going to have a debate, not a new motion or whatever, a debate on what the parliament that we want. And for me, it should be the parliament that is going to legislate on laws or policies and all that, that will work for the people.
I will want to be I will want to be part of that debate.
So for me, creating administrative units is not one of the priorities.
Yeah,
that I'm going to
actually someone has sent, and I want to thank the person, someone has sent me an information, and I've just quickly calculated that there are actually about 2.5 million elective positions as we talk now in Uganda. And then I did a quick calculation. I decided to use a conservative figure going by the recent surveys of UBC, that we are about, is it 42 million people?
Yeah.
And if you take 42 million divided by 2.5 million positions, you get about 16.8, meaning that every 16.8 Ugandans have a leader or someone who is elected. So there is already too much concentration of representation across the country, you know. But Chris, you wanted to come in. I need us to start looking at going forward. How can we resolve the issues and speak to the kind of, that Parliament should be speaking to the kind of, thought that Dr. Pear has, that if we were given a choice for Bukedea, do you want Bukedea district as it is now to be split so that you have 3 MPs, or do you want a fruit factory, given Teso can produce good fruits, that can, say, employ 4,000 youth? What would they choose? That is the kind of debate I would want us to go into. Yes, Chris.
First, I want to acknowledge here that the delay for Parliament to acquire the new chamber has nothing to do with the executive completely. It has everything to do with the Parliament, and those issues are being addressed by Parliament. The executive did its part, and I can assure you, provided what was needed. So the rest is for you, my bosses, to deal with and ensure that the chamber is there.
Because I also don't know why it's not complete.
Yes.
So it's throwing the ball back inside.
Now you are my leader.
My boss is a good servant.
You're a leader. Actually, you are all my bosses. That is a fact.
Yes.
And you head COSASE. It's an accountability oversight committee.
And by the Parliamentary Commission falls under COSASE. So one of these days, I'm going to summon them to come and explain.
So I wanted to make it clear because clarity is very important. Because people might think the executive frustrated the Parliament. No. To the best of my knowledge, the executive did everything possible to help Parliament get a new chamber. But those other obstacles, I cannot delve into them. What is my interest as your promoter of the image and understanding of Parliament? It should be premised on the understanding of the aspirations of the citizens, for which we are all citizens. So my argument is always about us avoiding situations that may appear in the defense of the needs of the population when actually they become a hindrance to the population. In some terms, it is called deadlock democracy. We need to avoid a deadlock democracy. Deadlock democracy is a situation where different arms of government use the principle of checks and balances to frustrate each other. That should not be promoted in Uganda. And it does not mean we should undermine checks and balances. But we're saying in doing checks and balances, we must avoid the extreme of creating a deadlock. Then you disadvantage the already disadvantaged people. What do I need? What do we need now as Parliament? The members of Parliament should be equipped with the tools of negotiation and bargaining. That's what happens in the House. So all of us who are participating in leadership must have those skills to negotiate than taking extremist positions. That's how I said we have tended to highlight more our disagreements than our points of agreement. That is the background. I did not in any way say you should not check government, but I'm cautioning that avoid creating a deadlock democracy. It's not good for all of us.
things must move. There must be complementary work more than competition. Because at the end of the day, the agenda of the population is what is supreme. So we should all get premiums. The NRM should get the premiums from NUP. NUP should see the premiums from the NRM manifesto and say only this one, if implemented, all our citizens gain. But if we want to become heroes in disagreements, then we shall wait and see where we shall reach. As the extremes come, the numbers come. The chief will invoke his numbers, and that does not work well. But if we negotiate, if we bargain, there's more to achieve. And when we talk about creation of districts, Charles, I agree with the Honorable. By the way, she's not just Honorable, she's a PhD.
That's why I called her
yes,
doctor.
She's a PhD. But again, you know, Honorable, no development without participation. So you will find yourself divided. You want to bring industries without participation? It also cannot be sustainable. So we have a catch-22. As Parliament, these are the issues preoccupying you. Which approach works? And you know, the policy formulation is about muddling through. You propose this solution, it creates another problem. But you also have to deal with that problem. So it becomes a cycle. That's what I'm saying. When, for instance, NUP creates a problem, we may not condemn NUP because that's the nature of policy formation. If government solution has created another problem, it should not mean that government deliberately created a problem. Because in policy formation, you have no magic bullet. Everything is an assumption. That if I do this, I may lead to this. But you can apply.
Just if I may ask you, so are you saying that government sometimes assumes if we create more districts, services are going to get closer to the people? Is that something that's
it's an assumption.
No, it's a falsehood.
No, first of all,
no. So do you actually do it well knowing it is wrong?
Can I continue first? I will allow you, my bosses, to speak. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, doctor, you can plan for A, expecting B, but the A leads you to Z.
What we call a
unintended, the law of unintended consequences.
When you're doing research,
not necessarily.
You really need to have different scenarios for you to come up with a solution.
What about creation of districts? First of all, if we say stop the creation, you must be mindful of the element of participation of citizens in decisions that affect them. Unless we are going to say, for us we have said this.
I think
now,
what we are saying
but maybe also, let me, can I also remind ourselves, Chris,
I want to conclude.
That also, where I like the focus of the current speaker is where he has continued to argue that we must have evidence-based debate.
Yes.
And even in social science, even in policy formulation, as long as you're using evidence, that, for example, what has worked before? Did it work best when NEBI had, for example, one district? Or is it working better, service delivery, where now NEBI has been split into Zombo, NEBI, and Pakwach districts? And if we can get what is better, that is evidence-based debate that we need for the country.
Can I conclude the submission?
Yeah.
First of all, Jacob Olanya is Jacob Olanya. He's passionate about what he talks. I have the privilege to associate with him. It is his heart he speaks out. What I'm trying to say, can there be a conducive environment to make what things work? And I'm trying to say, methods of them working is one of those of negotiation and giving chance to what is proposed. Okay. When you talk about service delivery, I agree, Charles, to service delivery. But again, in policy, you cannot do compulsive qualifying. That what worked last week is going to work next month. Not necessarily so. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not discounting the idea of research or anything. But these are dynamics of policy formation that necessarily may not work. And if you are talking about service delivery, Charles, service delivery is not as determined by you who's delivering it. It's but how the consumer perceives it.
Then what is the role of leaders then?
That I'm telling you, I'm coming to that, I will answer that. It is how the consumer perceives a service, not how you think as the one delivering. What is the role of the leader? Does the leader actually growing the participation of those he leads or she leads. That's a critical point.
Yeah.
When we talk about policy evaluations in Uganda, we don't even have a framework for evaluation, you know it. If you are talking about consultation, what's the national framework for consultation? Consultation is how SARA is determined, not necessarily you. How Domotho sees it. So it cannot give us the necessary feedback. So what I'm saying, let us interrogate the issues. One time I wrote an article that the numbers of members of parliament is not necessarily the issue. But what do members do? And how do they do it?
Output.
You get the point? For instance, we can say, okay, if you want 1,000 MPs, have them. But then we are going to make a primary teacher the best paid.
But now,
and we can have the 1,000 what?
So
members of parliament
okay.
to represent their people.
You're saying the numbers don't matter, but how will 1,000 MPs? Because now we even have a challenge. We can't speak each for 3 minutes in parliament, then they reduce to one, and you're saying the numbers don't matter, it is the output.
Yes.
The numbers compromise output, Chris. That's what we are saying. You don't have office space for them. You don't have enough time for them to speak on the floor.
And you can't get researchers
not
for
enough
all of them.
resources.
Honorable, just listen to me. I have said, whatever I've said, there is a proposal. If the people think the numbers participation is key, so be it. Give them the 1,000, give them the 1,000 MPs, but say your salary is going to be less than the primary school teacher.
But let me ask you, Chris.
And you have resources to build even a stadium for a parliament.
Chris, let me ask you, very simple. 2 months ago, we were here together, and we were discussing whether giving cars to every MP worth so much money is in the interest of the people. And you said very clearly that it is not necessarily what the people want that should matter, because MPs are supposed to be facilitated.
Did I say that?
Yeah. Because MPs are supposed to be facilitated. Now you are saying...
No, Charles, I think...
This guy is have a different interest.
I think your framing of issues is wrong. Many people watch that show here. I said MPs have 2 offices. One in the constituency and one in the parliament here.
That they should be facilitated.
As per human resource management.
And that it is necessary that they should be facilitated.
Exactly.
Yes. And what I am arguing right now isn't it a contradiction to say, because the people, that time the debate was held or had because there was an uproar, there was anger by the population and the civil society. And here many of the arguments were that it is not the people's anger that should judge. It is the role that parliament plays and the need for them to be facilitated that necessitates them being given the cars, which we agreed is okay. Right now, you are instead again saying that it is what the people want that should be the lead. That's what you're saying. And I'm saying, aren't those contradictions?
And I want to say, your framing of that matter is not correct. Because the argument I'm giving you now, that is that, one, you cannot even say that people are not important in a participation. There is no development without participation. If participation is very important, then the people must be involved. Now, if the demand of the people now is that they want more districts, they want more MPs.
So they should be given.
So if that's the demand, then the numbers should not be an issue. But then there's a decision to be made. If you want more numbers, this is the cost.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If the MPs see that theirs is leadership, then there can be a proposal to say no problem with 1,000 districts. But I am saying, in order to maintain the 1,000 and to offer development, we must cause some individuals to forego private benefits for public good.
Thank you so much.
As of now, many of us are reaping public benefits without a private sacrifice.
Okay.
Can we do it?
Dr. Apea, I've seen your hand up.
Clarify, just something small.
Yes, Dr. Apea.
I don't want I wouldn't like to see this discussion being perceived that there is a either or. in research, we use hypotheses.
Yes.
Precisely.
And this hypothesis gives you the balance. So that when you go and collect your data, you come back and analyze based on the two, different opinions that you are looking at, and then you can make your decision. That's why we read all these books, to inform also your own thinking. Now, the issue of creation of new districts and and asking for the analogy of asking for districts has come about not because we are saying creation of districts or the districts we have is bad or is good, but we are saying as a country right now, what do we want?
Most.
What is it that
as a priority?
What is our priority? And
supported by
my
the
honorable
available
colleague
resource
was
envelope.
asking my honorable minister here, Chief Whip, that provide the leadership. I don't think there's any leadership vacuum here. The NRM government has provided very clear leadership in their 5-year manifesto. I would invite very many people to, I don't know whether Joel has read it.
I actually always read them,
Very
and then I see where
clearly
the promises are not fulfilled.
The socio-economic transformation
Did you
issues
read the one
are
of
clear.
2016, Honorable? It promised
I
an
have-
ambulance system.
I have read all
Never
that.
seen it.
And you know why the problem? Do you know why there's a problem?
Uh-huh.
Because as leaders, we have failed to translate that into how we are going to generate revenue. You know, there's this illusion
But we
that
are
people
buying the
think
ambulances ourselves as
that
MPs
there is
now.
money somewhere. You get it? We've got to put our foot down as members of parliament. Can we go and invest so that our country starts generating revenue? And in that investment, can we provide a conducive environment, the peace that we need, the infrastructure, the electricity, and all these kind of things, so that revenue we are generating, you will see now the consolidated fund, our consolidated, the basket increasing and all that. But as long as we keep on lamenting and pointing fingers to one another, and we fail the focus, which Charles was Chris was talking about, for me, my focus is how do I transform that person in my village?
Yeah.
And I will definitely walk that journey with them.
Okay.
And that is where I was saying, if you went to my village now, I think they would ask for a factory, particularly for fish. Today I received a very short brief, very nice proposal from a young person telling me, doctor, you know, we are a fishing community. We have 2 lakes, but there's nothing we are doing with that lake other than going to, look for fish, and yet we can farm it. The boy was asking me for a fish pallet machine that can make a fish feed. And the money is just 30 million shillings. Now, if this young person has identified that this is what can bring for me money, I think as that, and for me, that is the participation. And participation are in 3 forms. 1, there's invited participation, there is claimed participation, and there is passive. And I think in my view, as we normally blame most of our people, I think the space we give them, in my view, is not so much about inviting them to give us the ideas. In most instances, we tend to tell them what we want them to tell us, which is a bit more passive.
Okay.
Not really them claiming their space and standing up and demanding, and this is it that, and they've been talking, by the way. If you look at all these data that has been collected, they've been talking, and that is why there is that cry of service delivery. They are telling you our health is not working. They're telling you this education thing. That's how they're communicating to us. So how do we, address that? And I think my sister was talking about the debts issue in the country. That are we aware? Everybody is aware about the debt situation. But what can we do to address it? What can we do to address it? It goes back to the investment that we need to do to really make sure that we are an independent. We are not depending on anybody's debt. We can generate our own.
Okay. Sarah, I'm giving you only 1 minute so that I read some of the messages that have come as feedback, and then allow us
thank you very much,
to do a wrap-up.
Charles. Just my last word on this issue of administrative districts. I think I want to add 2 issues. One is the provisions in our constitution, which create that new administrative units should be created within 2 years after the census. That was part of the grounds in the Kwizera petition. So that means that in 10 years, the framers of the Constitution envisaged that our government should create administrative districts once in 2 years, in 10 years. Because that's the period of the census. The other issue that where leadership comes in is a situation that Kenya adopted when there was craziness for demand of districts like we have in Uganda under Moi regime. The Kenyan parliament moved a motion and created a criteria for any area to qualify as a new administrative unit. Number of people, facilities available, income generated, and they set a minimum threshold. So once your area of a proposed new unit does not meet that criteria, and that's how the madness ended in Kenya. So this is where leadership is required. It is not a matter of saying it's what the people want. How many things do we do that the people want? That excuse should end.
Okay. Let me ask my production team to bring me the messages that have come from the Busovozi Biamukama from Chenjojo says, thanks for the program. My question goes to Honorable Tayebwa. What plan does government have on the reopening of schools? Next, Robert Bwayo from Magufuli from Mbale City. I have seen the LOP come up with their legislative agenda. We pray that they implement them because we Ugandans are good at paperwork, but on ground zero, and also other parliamentary committees should perform their tasks to the maximum. George from Bale says, good evening, Charles. Thanks for the program. Please ask Chris whether new MPs undergo induction before the start of business. Yes, the answer is yes, they do. Muzungu James from Manafwa says, Charles, 10th and 11th parliaments are self-seekers. They think in terms of executive, judiciary, and legislature, leaving traditional civil servants very poorly catered for. Charles, ask those MPs, when did they last legislate for the welfare of civil servants? That is for the 3 MPs. Sir John Igomira Rwamasindi from Kiruhura district says, to a greater extent, the 11th parliament has lived to our expectations in their first 100 days, putting in consideration that over 50% of legislators are new in the House. Specifically on legislation and oversight, most of them have visited their constituencies to check on how government projects are working and later reported back to Parliament. I think Emioga stands out on that. And there I agree with him on the issue of representation. And then Fred Matovu from Rakai says the performance would be good, but MPs prioritizing themselves by taking big amounts of money as salaries. Please be patriotic and reduce on the biggest salaries that you give yourselves. Many Ugandans are not happy with it. That's from Fred Matovu. Wamboko Kituno from Mbale says, generally, the 11th Parliament has not shown much indication that they will be performers. This is largely seen on how they are disorganized, especially on the quality of debate. Thanks. Luke from Mukono says, thanks for the show, Charles and panelists. I have an inquiry. Is there an avenue for a non-MP to present issues to Parliament without going through their MPs? Petitions? Yes.
Write to the clerk, write to the speaker, and your petition is received.
Chris, you need to educate us on our publics on that through your Twitter handles and other spaces.
Country.
Good. Frank Ntira Kimaka Jinja says, I appreciate the 11th Parliament for following up on government programs, Mioga and PM money, COVID relief. A big thanks, and hopefully Ugandans can see public funds being used rightly going forward. Cedric Wanjala from Bukwa district says, I love the way Honorable Tayebwa transacts business in Parliament. Ask Honorable Senyonyi, when is Noop joining iPod? This one is the last. Hi Charles, I'm Francis in Kampala. To the government chief whip, based on decentralization, can we reduce number of MPs to sub-regional levels and strengthen capacity of the local government district councils for proper leadership and service delivery? Thanks to all of you for those messages and for participation. We are now going to do a rundown, just pick from the feedback we have got, 1 minute each. From the feedback we have got, the discussion way forward. How do we ensure that, what is your word for the parliament? How do we ensure that the people benefit most from parliament going forward? Sarah, starting with you.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I think the parliament should focus on their main functions. Article 79 of the Constitution is very clear. Work for peace, order, development, and good governance of the country. We have, I think, our biggest crisis now as a country, where Parliament should focus their checks. I will mention 3 things. One is the gross abuse of human rights. The nation hasn't healed from the violence we experienced in the last election. I know that the previous parliament had an attempt to inquire into the human rights abuses, but the parliament ended before they could adopt or discuss the findings. And that was one of the issues that were booked for the next parliament, but given that I don't know who is going to take a decision on that, because the abuses of these human rights come from one arm of government. So I hope that debate will not be suppressed. Today also being the second issue that Parliament needs to focus on is wasteful expenditure, to make sure that as a country we are able to live within our means, and that touches on many issues, including the fiscal discipline of the people who are duty bearers in this country. And the third issue is corruption.
Okay.
But today being International Democracy Day, I don't know whether the day has already ended. I want to really, as an actor on governance, I want to re-echo the call on the theme for the International Democracy Day for 2021, which was making sure that democracy is about the people, inclusion and participation. So, but you cannot include people once you don't take care of their needs. And we need to promote the 5 pillars of democracy in this country. And that duty is for Parliament as contained in Article 79 of the Constitution. Work for, protect the Constitution and promote good governance in this country. So can we have the 5 pillars of democracy promoted by the Parliament? Because that's your main function. I thank you.
Okay, something that is very similar to that as Chris comes in is also on the Twitter handle of the Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Jacob. He says the 11th Parliament is going to be different. It's going to be a people's parliament focused on what affects the people. How do we interrogate and shape socio-economic transformation concepts to work better? What is our understanding as parliamentarians of these concepts? Chris, your 1 minute.
Yeah, greatly, Charles. As rightly said by the speaker, people-centered. And I will keep repeating, that is from Olanya's heart. Give him the conditions to do what he wants to do, and the country will appreciate it. But it starts with members themselves accepting who they are, the responsibility they have to themselves and to the country, and they play that responsibility with the commitment and the discipline.
There is a concept we call moral suasion in policy dynamics, that it is the example that those who are respected in society, that creates, projects how the led will respond. There is a reason why in Buganda, when a Kabaka speaks, people tune on radios, because he has that moral high ground. There's a reason why we say religious leaders should speak out on these issues. So there should be a reason for people to listen to members of parliament.
Okay.
And that reason should be how they go about their work in the House. I talked about negotiation and bargaining. It's very important to have those tools. It is not, as the speaker always says, it is not how loud the voice is the reason in the argument.
Okay.
I believe that. And there we are going to project a good image of parliament. It is not to say there should be no points of divergence. Divergence will be there, but it should not distract from the national agenda.
Okay.
When talk about big salaries, again I want to submit, Charles, this story, yes, the MP salaries are big, but comparatively. Yes, when Charles looks at his salary at UBC and he compares with the Honorable Dr. Peya, he says he's earning big. But Charles will not mention that Dr. Peya, when she goes to Amolata, there are 500 people in her compound.
Because of the dysfunctional.
Yes, I understand that. I understand that.
Where government is absent, the MP becomes government.
No, I understand that. And that's the quicker one for us to run into. You get it?
What is the...
The other thing, there's what we call, there's a saying we again have in policy. I'm proud about public policy. No guts, no glory. We must all have the guts to tell the citizens your demands on an MP are unreasonable. Very few have those guts because we want to side with the populist side.
Okay.
If you don't have the guts to tell the population that it's wrong to confront your MP and judge them on the role which is not theirs, then we are perpetuating the problem.
Okay.
So what will happen is that the politicians will respond to the environment. And then you keep blaming the politicians. Yes, big salaries compared to who? And why? The pressure they are facing is not the one I'm facing as Chris Obore. I work in the parliament, so is Honorable Joel. But even working in Nakawa, people think a savior has come.
So
why don't we tell the people that vote Honorable Senyonyi for his capacity to negotiate for what is good for you and this country?
Isaac says, Charles, can you ask those honorables when they are tabling a motion to cut down the number of MPs by reducing constituencies, and if they can support it? Honorable Peya, your last word.
If you have no guts to tell the truth to the electorate, then have shame to blame the members as well.
Honorable Peya.
Thank you very much. I think that last question is speaking to our decentralization agenda that we've talked about. And I think if we do our roles of appropriation, of legislation that focuses on the people, as we are promising in the 11th Parliament, we are hoping that our people will start appreciating the fiscal decentralization that will come from the appropriation role that we shall do, and hopefully that we shall entrench the decentralization policy a bit more. And I see that happening, particularly with our parish model.
Okay.
Now, my last few words will be that to our people who have voted us, they gave us their confidence, and I would want to ask them to be confident in us and to assure them that members of parliament are well equipped for the job. And we have shown in the 100 years, I mean the 100 days, sorry, in the 100 days that we are capable to deliver the people's parliament to their people. And finally, what I'm seeing and from the speaker's agenda and vision that he has given to us, we want to translate or to demystify the big element called parliament into action. Our dream, our hope is that our legislation agenda, our oversight, and our appropriation should be one that will deliver results, not one that will remain in papers. And on my own, I would really want to say that in our all different committees, somebody was telling me today, why is parliament everywhere? As we talk today, there are over 10 committees out there talking. We are everywhere because we want to see zero corruption. If Imyoga is meant for the people, let it go to the people. Parliament will get there and make sure that what is meant for our people actually reach our people. And that is the parliament of action that we want to see.
So Mivule Ronald says, Charles, actually we have currently 3.5 million elective positions and the ratio is one leader to 12 Ugandans. Joel Senyonyi, your last word in 1 minute.
Charles, Musungu talked about legislating for civil servants. And again, this is something we raise in our legislative agenda. We want to push for better pay for teachers, better pay for healthcare workers, better pay for our men and women in uniform. Over the weekend, I have 2 barracks in my constituency, Naguru and then Chirekabanda. So over the weekend, I was meeting wives of a number of these police officers to support them in their circles, their business initiatives. And they told me stories of what their husbands go through. The niggardly small salary that they get, the uniports in which they stay. You find sometimes one uniport houses 2 families divided by a bed sheet. You know, sometimes the salary comes late. The police officer will not complain because they will be court-martialed or something of the sort. We must be able to better the lives of these people. And I've made the case to say this huge budget of security, trillions of shillings, then you have 3.8 trillion classified. I would be happy if this was going to the welfare of our men and women in uniform. But you have this classified trillions of shillings. These guys are earning little money. They are living like paupers. You know, we must better their lives. Somebody talked about our agenda not just being on paper, and they're right. And we want that you keep judging us by the actions. You know, you have seen what we are doing with the accountability committees. You know, you have seen the motions we are moving on Parliament and so on, and that's important, that people get to know, no, this agenda is not just something that was produced, it's on paper there, but are we acting on it? So please help to hold us accountable. There was somebody that asked, when are we joining IPOD? We have made our case about IPOD. We think that it has become an entity that is used to sanitize Mr. Museveni, that you will sit with him, take tea, take pictures with him, get out of there. Following day, you go to mobilize, they beat you, kill your people, tear gas, and so on. So he wants to show the world, you see me, I'm not very bad. I sit with my opponents, we talk, we discuss, but when you go out there, chibok. So we said, no, we don't want to be a part of something that does not add value to our country's democracy. We don't want pretense. You know, we are happy for genuine dialogue. We are happy for what is real, not a facade. I'll end really by, at least from where I sit as spokesperson of NUP, I want to appreciate our members of parliament who belong to NUP. I know many people hounded them at the start. They said, now these ones, what are they going to do? But in these few days, I see how active they are on the floor of parliament. I'm sure the government chief whip would attest to that. I see how they keep raising matters, you know, of importance, things that are pressing their people. I see how they are doing things in their constituencies, things that are not meant for us as MPs. You know, Sarah was adumbrating the role of an MP as stipulated in Article 79. But you know, we are out there buying ambulances and so on. There's a time I bought medicine for a government hospital in my constituency, Naguru Hospital. So I asked them, I said, give me a list of the medicines you don't have. Oh my goodness, it's like I'd given them a blank check. They wrote and wrote. I said, so I went and bought medicine worth millions of shillings.
Just to enhance that point, sometimes, Honorable, it could be government failure to deliver, it could be theft at the health unit. So we have to see.
Oh, but where are the ambulances? Have they been stolen? That government sent the ambulances.
At the level of service
But you
delivery,
didn't hear,
which is the work of the
that
executive.
2 months ago an ambulance was stolen in Arua?
But you see, recently we used money that Ugandans contributed towards COVID. We bought 282 pickup trucks and bought 36 ambulances. Like, what's wrong with us?
Are they out now?
Okay, finally, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable
So
Thomas.
really, I salute our MPs.
Way forward.
Yes, number one, the advantage of being in opposition is that...
Where you were?
Is that, yeah, and where I found it easy when I was there, is that you can make any suggestion, any proposal, any agenda without costing it. Now, the challenge of being in government is that any proposal you make, you must cost it. You must look at the resource envelope. You must look at other obligations. Even when you have budgeted and planned, emergencies come, you must address them. And when colleagues are just saying, you have failed on ABCD, failed. So, and I mainly saw this when I entered the cabinet. And I looked at our resource envelope, and I saw the real reality of what we share. So, it's very, very important that the public understands that, for example, in this year's budget, now we anticipate a budget shortfall of around 2 trillion Uganda shillings, but we also anticipate unplanned expenditure of another around 1.5 trillion because of emergencies that came with COVID. Now, meaning you have to suppress very important items that you had included in the budget. So that's a challenge of being in government. But when you're on the other side, we have a saying in our culture among the Wachiga that otamkuisatu muikareti jindi. When someone is wrestling with someone, for you on the sidelines, you just say, but you're wasting our time. Just put him down and we go, you know? So that's a challenge. Number two, someone asked about reopening of schools, Charles.
Yes.
One important message we put out is that we shall reopen when it is safe to do so. Last time we opened under pressure.
National schools are open.
Last time we opened under pressure, and you saw what happened. Students ended up spreading COVID across the country. I was talking to a friend in Kenya, an MP friend in Kenya. He was telling me they are going to be forced to close again because the third wave has hit, and the schools which they were celebrating, they've been hit hard by COVID. They're in a crisis. So we must open only and only when it's safe. Someone says, our children are getting pregnant at home. At least they will study as mature, not when they're in graves.
Wonderful.
It's better to study when you're mature than for us to be celebrating on your grave, saying this and this. But government will soon come out with a plan because we are hinging it on attaining certain levels of vaccination, and we hope by around maybe December we shall have achieved certain levels of vaccination. Johnson & Johnson is coming. It's just one single jab, so it's going to make it very, very easy for us. We are focusing on vaccinating our teachers. And any teacher, and any teacher, listen, and any teacher who does not allow to be vaccinated will not be allowed in our school. That's a government policy. Any staff of a school, if you don't allow vaccination, we shall not allow you to go and cause danger to our people. Now you're talking of international schools. You're talking of international schools. You're talking of international schools. Number one, international schools are not open physically.
No, they are.
If there are some which are open physically, the minister wants those cases, kind of share.
In my constituency,
don't mind.
the other day,
no, I've just requested.
accident.
Please,
from dropping children at school. In my constituency.
Do you know what? Do you know why we have a law? We have a law because there are people who will not even listen to directives. So the law will catch up with them.
Okay.
Those which are open online. Allow them to continue studying online because of their calendars and curriculums, which are based in Europe and all that. But physical opening, government has not allowed them to open. Charles, I had many questions. Legislation for welfare of civil servants. As government now, our focus, the president has been very clear, is on scientists. We hope Parliament supports us. The resource envelope is small, but this pandemic has shown us that indeed scientists are the only people who can save us. So we want to enhance for all, but we are appreciating that. Let's start with scientists. A graduate doctor to start at 5 million, a nurse to start at 4 million as we continue. Up to consultants who will be earning around 20 million. And that plan,
unintended consequences.
And Charles, that plan, next financial year, we want it completely implemented.
People in arts will say, who are the administrators?
I'm an artist. The president is an artist. The first lady, the Minister of Education, is an artist. The Prime Minister is an artist. We are big decision makers. But we are saying, when we had problems, when you were suffocating with COVID, did you go to a lawyer? No. You needed a doctor. You needed an intensivist. We don't have it.
It is the artist who led the war against COVID successfully.
Then reduce parliament to sub-regional MPs, sub-regional levels, and strengthen local governments. No, you don't need to do that, but you can strengthen local governments. Let's give more support to local governments. What is going to be our major focus as government? The president has made it very clear. We want a parliament that is focusing on programs that will bring more people into money economy. That's why our focus is going to be the parish model. We hope starting next financial year, we shall be giving at least 100 million per parish in the country. And Honorable Joel, we don't want money now to remain in Kampala. Support us. We put money to the people. They plan for themselves. We involve them so that we can change the country. Right, Honorable, as I conclude, it's on the...
That's how it submits in Parliament. So
what's our strategy?
Let him wind up so that we are now in...
What's our strategy? Right, Honorable Ranya made a very clear guidance to us that we should not sharpen our voices. We should sharpen our brains and engage. And for us, on our side, in negotiation, which we are emphasizing, Chris, there is what we call ZOPA. That's a zone of possible agreement. So we are always talking to the opposition to see how best can we come to the green light. We are all in red, but we are moving toward the green light. We might not achieve all, but the moment we reach in green. But then there is also what we call BATNA. That's best alternative to a negotiated agreement. We will only invoke our numbers when a negotiated agreement cannot be reached, you know. But our major focus is the ZOPA, which is Zone of Possible Agreement, and so far we are doing well. We want ideas and resolutions which are owned by all. We don't want to be winning as NRM. We want to win as a country, and we win as a whole parliament.
Thank you. Thank you so much, the Honorable Government Chief Whip, Thomas Taibwa. Thank you so much, Joel Senyonyi, COSASE Chairman and NOP spokesperson. And thank you so much, Dr. Apea, Amolata Ruman MP. Thank you very much, Chris Obore. That what?
The positions he holds, they contribute to youth unemployment. They were like 20.
How many are they? MP, Nakawa West, is chairman COSASE, he's a spokesperson of NOP, and a former journalist. What else?
And the current journalist.
And he became a mobilizer for drugs in his constituency.
Chief strategist of NOP.
Thank you very much.
Called multitasking.
Chris Obore, the director for communication. Thank you so much.
I promise you, 11th Parliament will show you the difference.
Oh, good.
Please tell people the role.
Help them more.
They will play the roles better.
Help them with a lot with communication so that they deliver well for advocating for their people. Thank you very much, Council Sarah Birete. Thank you so much. From the team here, we want to thank you, especially those of you who listen in every Wednesday and from 10 to midnight and beyond. Thanks a lot for being part of the show always, and especially to those of you who spare time and their resources to send in messages and to ask questions or make comments about the show. and air out your views. Thank you very much to all the producer, the team of production that I work with, led by Morris, William, Bills, and Fred and Ivan and Andrew. All of you, I thank you very much. From the team here, bye-bye. God bless you. Until next week.
Until we meet you in Parliament.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94# to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94#